Okay. All right. Let's do it. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Girl Talk Hoops podcast. I'm Tori. I hope you guys are having a great week. First of all, please like, subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, okay? I'm not above begging, and I'm begging right now. So please subscribe. Get in the comments, share your thoughts on some of the things we're going to talk about. This episode is going to cover week 5 from like June 9th to the 15th. My apologies for this episode being late. I did my stats and stuff like 2 days ago, and I had plans the next day, which actually kind of is what I wanted to start this episode off and talk about. I'm changing the day that this is going to be happening because I'm not very good at Tuesdays. I've realized that I think that I've only been on time on a Tuesday like 3 times in the past 5 weeks, and honestly it might have been 2 times in the past 5 weeks. And it occurred to me that I'm just making my life too hard. It's not necessary for me to be recording this podcast on nights before I have to go to work. Like, I get 3 days off. These episodes, they'll be out like Friday or Saturday or something, but I would much rather it makes more sense because I was just setting myself up for failure. So my apology for the episode being late. I like spiraled about it being late and like beating myself up, and then I was like, actually, you don't have to do that. You can just change the day. So Fridays it is now. And if you want to go and follow me on whatever you're listening to this on to stay up to date on new episodes for the audio listeners. And also, if you want to know when these episodes are going to be late, if they're going to be on time, whatever the case may be, Twitter is the best place. That's where I keep people the most informed. That or on Unbiased and Unbothered. We're on Twitch and YouTube and TikTok on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then just TikTok on Sundays. So if you guys are interested, or there's like a game coming on around that time, those lives happen from 9 Eastern time to who knows what time. We just be on there talking. So feel free to go check that out if you're interested. And then the Twitter's down there. I just hit 600 followers, so thank you guys so much. I'm really happy that I could build a community over there and be a part of the women's basketball space and stuff on Twitter. I know a lot of people like Threads. I don't really like Threads that much for 2 reasons. Really just one, I feel like a lot of players are on Threads, and like, not that I think that the things that I say about some players aren't warranted. It's also like, it's one of those time and place things. Like, there's some things that I say on TikTok that I'm not like as honest as I am here, because there's players on TikTok, there's players on Threads, there's players on Twitter, but they're much more likely to not be there because of the way that space interacts and talks about, players in the game. And like, there are some people on Threads who also kind of keep that Twitter energy over there, but I'd rather not mix the two. And yeah, just no. But yeah, I am gonna start using Threads more. I actually made a post on it the other day, or earlier today, about Bridget Carlton and how people should be voting for her for All-Star, which I think people should. And if you aren't All-Star voting, you definitely should. I've personally been voting for people who I think don't need my votes. Like, I like Paige. Paige doesn't need my votes. I like AZ. AZ doesn't need my votes. I like Asia. Asia doesn't need my votes. The people who might need my vote is a Bridget Carlton. It is an Olivia Miles, a Courtney Williams, blase, blah, Jessica. Honestly, Jessica Shepard doesn't need my vote. And it's not because she doesn't need it. It's just the Paige and AZ fans, they got that covered. So get out there and all-star vote for who you want. I was just talking about me. Anyways, on Twitter is usually where, I'm most active outside of TikTok. I actually made a TikTok video the other day, and people really enjoyed that. I was really just trashing some of the WNBA coaches, so I'm gonna put that link in the description. But let's talk about the basketball. There's no player of the week this week, and there's no who won the week. We'll try again next week. The discourse for the week We can do that. And then there's one thing in the discourse of the week, but it's not really discourse. JJ Quinerly got waived from the Wings and they signed Sug Sutton, I'm assuming because of I think they had a roster spot, but also Odyssey Sims got hurt like a week ago. So, and people have said they've liked how she's played. I haven't seen her play this week, so I don't really have any thoughts on that. I only have my thoughts on Monday's games and then the ones from the previous week. So, if you want to skip this one because the games aren't like super updated, that's fine, do what you got to do. Angel and Izzy. I have a couple of points here. I'll make them quick because I honestly that happened so many days ago. But a lot of people were like, it's not a foul, and it 100% was. First of all, I don't even know where to begin. I'll start with, as a post player, you have to remain vertical in the paint, and that like includes your hands. Like the second your wrists aren't vertical or any other part of your arm don't remain vertical, that's a foul. And we know that because Cameron Brink gets called for that foul every single game, almost damn near every single game. And it's just like, I think people were being disingenuous about it because of who the foul was committed against. And a lot of people don't like Angel. And yeah. And then outside of that, some people were saying like it's a tie up, and I've seen people slow down the footage. I've seen them take screenshots of the slowed down footage. And at the end of the day, whether you slow it down or you speed it up, it's a foul. You can't tie the ball up with the person who has possession of the ball being between you and the ball. That's just not how that works. Had somebody come in front of Angel and put their hands on the ball, it wouldn't, like, okay, sure, a tie up, but you can't go and like put your arms down over somebody's shoulder and say, oh, I was making a play on the ball. That's not, no. And then also, I feel like, I know that the foul was something to talk about, but I also felt like the other important part of the conversation was the fact that Izzy Harrison was having a really great game. We're going to go through the stats later, but Izzy was having a really great game. She was winning her matchup versus Angel. She had held her to, X amount of rebounds and X amount of points. And then as soon as she was ejected, there was a momentum swing and the tempo were never able to get back in the game. And it's just like one of those things where it's like, you have to be able and like remember how important it is to stay composed, because to me, this was a winnable game. I don't think that the Dream are playing very well right now, and we're going to talk about why and everything in a second. But this was just such a winnable game, and as a vet, I do expect, her to have some more composure and to remember how important her role is to the team, because once she was out, like, Niara Sabally is not on the bench. She's hurt. So they only had Timmy Fagbinley. That's really it. And no shade to Timmy, but she's not she's not a dominant post player. So Angel definitely started hooping after that. And I think that, two things can be true at once. Yes, it was a foul, and that was a very important part of the conversation. But also, it's important to remain composed in those high stakes moments. And I think to the point about the soft ejection, the only reason I don't think it was a soft ejection was because the refs had allowed it to get chippy. And, you kind of have to, like, if you want control of the game, you have to get rid of one of them. And Izzy was the one who, had did a little too much. And so it had to be her that day. Typically, I don't know that I would agree with an ejection, but they hadn't called any text previously when people were talking about they were trying to hit the ball out of each other's hands and all that stuff. The ref should have never let it get to that point to where it led to her getting ejected, and they never should have let it get to the point where, emotions are running high enough for that foul to happen. So really, when you think about it, this is the ref's fault. And also, I do put a little bit of that on Izzy and everything like that. But, the refs got to keep control of the game. And if anything, I think the refs are really just affecting some of these games. And we're going to talk about it. Let's get into the basketball. On Tuesday, we had 3 games, and this was on June 9th. Dream versus Sky. The Dream beat the Sky 82-75. The Dream outscored them in the paint 48-26, and this is not shocking or surprising, of course, because as I said last week, unfortunately, the Sky's post players, they're just not they're not gonna win most matchups. They're not. And then I feel like that puts a lot of pressure on the guards to produce and to do XYZ and to be playing at a certain caliber. And I don't think that that's unfair, but it definitely creates an imbalance in how you can in how to beat them, but also in how they win games. And so I'm hoping that over the next few weeks, the Sky are going to turn it around a bit. I think they have some better matchups, some easier matchups coming up. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I definitely thought that this was a winnable game for them. Rebounding. They lost that battle to the Dream 36-25. And I honestly, I find that a bit unacceptable just because the Dream are giving up a lot in size right now because Bree Jones is injured. And so I feel like right now the best time to beat the Dream would be right now while Bree Jones is hurt. Like, but there are some teams that just aren't quite rising to their level and meeting the moment. And then also on top of that point, the Dream they were not playing well. They weren't, because at the beginning of the game they were shooting threes and they didn't start getting back into the game and scoring well and playing better until they started attacking the paint. And I just feel like Carl Semesco, I don't mind his like plan for the offense, but I think one of the things that bothers me about a Carl or about a Alex Sarama or a Lynn Roberts or a Nate Tibbetts, I feel like it puts you in a place. I think that like some of these coaches, like in their head, they want their team to play a certain way, but in reality, it needs to be more about making the right decisions as you're playing the game, right? Because another coach, they can throw something new at you. Like they watch film and they learn your tendencies and everything. And so it does become about how do you counter this? How do you counter that? And I feel like a couple of coaches and even the coach in for Seattle, I feel like she's struggling with this as well. She's struggling to close games, but also I do think that you just have to try different stuff. And I think that a lot of that stuff comes with years of coaching and watching and understanding of the game. And so some of these coaches that have been hired more recently that don't have, when we talk about a Lynn Roberts or we talk about a Nate Tibbetts and some other coaches, an Alex Sarama or a Chris DeMarco, it's kind of like some of these coaches have decent rosters and better coaches could make their teams competitive, but because they might not be working with the same experience, it's kind of like some of their teams are suffering because of that. And I definitely think Tyler Marsh, he confuses me because he has been a part of a championship team and he knows what it takes and what he needs to do, but he hasn't been able to execute that. And yes, it is because of the roster, but it's also like there are moments when I feel like Gabriela Jaquez, she kind of struggled in a game, and we'll talk about that later. She kind of struggled in the game versus, I don't know, it was one of these games more recently. It wasn't one of the ones from last week. But I was kind of confused as to why he didn't want to go to his bench and put Sydney Taylor in instead. It's stuff like that of like knowing when to put somebody in, like having a feel for the game. And obviously that comes with time and experience, but it does feel like some of these coaches, especially a Nate Tibbetts or a Lynn Roberts, that they should be better at that, being 2 or 3 years in with their teams respectively. So I'm interested to see how that continues to go. I am going to put these glasses on because things are getting blurry. Alrighty. They lost the rebounding battle. The Chicago Sky did 25-36. Both teams struggled to take care of the ball. I think the Dream had 16 turnovers and the Sky had 15. But I think obviously, that just means good defense is being played when it's a little back and forth like that, but also very evenly matched there. The Sky shot the ball better, but ultimately couldn't make them pay at the free throw line. Starters struggled, but their bench helped them stay in the game. For the starters, the Dream scored 78 points and the Sky scored 47 points. The bench for the Dream scored 4 points and the Sky's bench scored 28. I feel like the Dream should be playing better, especially versus like a contending team like that. Like beating the Sky, that low key means nothing to me, right? Because the Sky aren't real contenders. If they end up getting to the playoffs, that's a different conversation to be had then. But even then, I don't believe that they have enough, and I don't think that their coach is good enough to get them to a championship. So yeah. But anyways, the Dream shot the ball 19% from 3. They were honestly, like I said here in my notes, and like I said previously, they were just playing terribly until they started attacking the paint. And that, to me, was the pattern for their entire week. I don't love the shooting threes systems for this team at the time, especially because a lot of players are better finishers than they are shooters. Now, Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray, I have this conversation every single week, but they just have to be better and they have to be consistent. You know, Ryan has been fairly consistent. Alicia's not really like packing the same punch that she did last season. And I'm going to give them a little bit more time with that. But I am expecting for them to look better in July. Like if they don't look better by July, but even before Bree Jones comes back, because this is a team that should be winning without her, honestly. We'll play it by ear and we'll see. We'll put a pin in it. The Sky went into the fourth with the lead. Unfortunately, they just weren't able to, close the game. I think Angel did a really great job and has been doing a really great job of kind of getting everyone to slow down in the final minutes of the fourth quarter and have everybody making the right decisions and the right basketball plays. And I think that has been like one of those things that you can obviously see and tell is different about this team. But also like they don't really give up, at least not most of the time. And I appreciate that. And I really like that Angel's kind of bringing that grittiness up. And, just to make sure we're not shitting on Chicago the entire time, this was definitely one of their better offensive and defensive games in my mind. They had some good ball movement. And I think it just comes down to Natasha Cloud was the best player on this team in this game. And unfortunately, her being your best player is not going to win you games. And that is just unfortunately the honest truth there. But, I'm interested to see, who's going to step up. How is Tyler going to use? Is he going to use Sydney Taylor more, especially after her performance versus the Fever later on this week, which we'll talk about a bit later. I'm interested to see how they continue to build from here, but I do think that Chicago should be possibly gearing up to maybe move Latricia Trammell into the head coaching position. I think that would be better. And then also last week we discussed, this roster and maybe they make a trade or something because they definitely need a scoring guard for sure if they would like to compete and make it to the playoffs. My overall thoughts on this game is just I don't think this was sustainable. This is not a sustainable win for them. All the starters playing 32 plus minutes, and especially just the way that they struggled at the beginning of the game because they're always trying to shoot threes. I would really love to see Carl change up his game plan for each matchup and welcome attacking the paint and getting to the free throw line and everything. But also they did struggle from the free throw line, I believe. But anyways, they pulled out the game. Okay. For the Dream, I just think that even though they won this game, this is just not a sustainable way to win long term. The starters played 32 plus minutes and, he got nothing from his bench. And the way that they struggled, and honestly, this game went down to the wire. They were just honestly just trading baskets going back and forth. I would just like to see them all around do better. And hopefully we'll see that in this upcoming week. But Ryan Howard gave you 17 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, and was 7 of 17 from the field, 1 of 10 from 3. Yes, you heard that right. 1 of 10. Angel gave you 17 points, 17 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. Naz Hillman gave you 16 points, 6 rebounds. Alicia Gray, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 3 steals. And Jordan Canada gave you 14 points and 6 steals. For the Sky, I don't understand Sydney Taylor not playing more. He definitely played her in the game on Thursday, but I'm definitely going to keep my eye on that for this next episode. I feel like Tyler Marsh is just not very good at adjusting his rotation to how his team is playing. And I think that has definitely been a downfall for them. Sometimes shots don't fall, but also playing people for 14 plus minutes who aren't producing, you're just not going to win that way. Skylar Diggins went out there and gave you 17 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Natasha Cloud, 18 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Camila Cardozo gave you 13 points, 5 assists, 2 rebounds, 4 blocks, and Azurá Stevens gave you 8 points and 7 rebounds. Definitely looking for, a better performance from everyone involved moving forward there, but those are just my thoughts for now. Next game we had Wings versus Lynx. The Lynx beat the Wings. For the game in its entirety, really exciting matchup. I think these are two teams that are trying to make a run for it. They're trying to contend for something, and the Lynx they got a whole thing. They have a whole story going on, but so does Dallas. For the past 2 or 3 seasons, they have just been struggling. And so for them to have like a real shot at something right now, it's very exciting, and they've been very exciting to watch as well. The Lynx had a really strong first half, scoring 58 points to the Wings 38. Paige and Jessica had good games from the floor. I think some other players just kind of struggled here, but when the Wings are all playing really great and they're making the right decisions and they have great shot selection, it's perfect. I'll also add that I think this game, I don't know how many games I've watched recently, but this week in particular, I have noticed that Paige is shooting from the mid-range a bit more to kind of get going and to get hot. And I'm very pleased with that, especially because last week I did say that I would like to see Paige not just only shoot threes. And somebody actually left a comment, I think Julia on Spotify left a comment, and she was kind of talking about how, she would really like to see Paige, shoot more of the mid-range because that is what she's so good at. And I think the same philosophy that Cheryl Reese has for Courtney Williams, I would love for Jose to have for Paige, shoot your shot. Now, it's different if you're missing it, and then that's a whole separate conversation, but Paige always makes them. And when she's shooting the mid-range at a high caliber, this team wins, and I would really love that. So far this week, great adjustment there for Paige. I don't know if that's just her personally. I don't know if it's the coach making that decision and telling her, hey, shoot this, shoot that. But when she shoots the mid-range and then it opens her up. It opens her up on the arc. I'm 100% happy with it. Keep doing you, Paige. And obviously, Jessica is a really great point forward, so they had great games. The Wings struggled scoring in the paint, 46-26. The Lynx out-rebounded them 41-31. Also, the Wings were without a walk, but I still think with her, they would have taken the game. But the Lynx made shots tough and took some players out of the game early. Wings shot a lot of threes, but it was hard to really get in the paint because of Lynx defense. They're rated number 1 in the league right now, so shout out to the Lynx. For the Wings, Paige gave you 23 points and was 9 of 16 from the field. Dearica gave you 16 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, and was 4 of 8 from the field. And Jessica Shepard gave you 12 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and was 6 of 10 from the field. For the Lynx, Olivia Miles gave you 24 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds, was 7 of 10 from the field. Kayla McBride had 22 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and was 7 of 10 from the field. And also, I do want to note that Kayla has been playing much better this week. She played well in this game, and she also played well in the game versus the Aces. She shot a lot better, and I'm really happy for her because she had been struggling a bit, and a lot of people were saying, once Nafisa comes back, it's going to open up for her a little bit, but I am happy to see her game kind of open up without Nafisa. So now with Nafisa, I think everything is just it's going to be really great. Obviously when she comes back, I think there's going to be some subtle chemistry stuff, like how is she catching the ball, or maybe, she's so great and her and Olivia are going to have practiced that, in practice and everything, and they're going to be good. But, there will be some growing pains there, but I think it's going to be amazing, and I'm very excited to see what the Lynx do moving forward. Natasha Howard gave you 21 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and was 8 of 10 from the field. And Courtney Williams had 16 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 steals. Next, we have Mercury versus Valkyries, and the Valkyries beat the Mercury 87-81. What lost the Mercury this game was really just not taking care of the ball, but it feels like that's the story every single week. And I actually 12 turnovers to the Valkyries 9, which, I'm not going to sit here and be like the Mercury don't play defense at all, but like I said, I just feel like this team could be playing better than they are with the better coach. And I've been saying that for the past 2 seasons. I just don't think that Nate Tibbetts is going to be, is the right person for the job. I don't. I think that this team, they have bright spots and bright moments. I just don't think that he's the coach that's going to get them there. And honestly, I don't think that this team is good enough to, compete for anything in a real sense. But, we're going to talk about some different performances this week. Honestly, the Mercury should have won this game. They shot the ball better and they beat them on the boards, but the Valkyries scored 17 points off of their 12 turnovers. And they also fouled a lot. The Valkyries shot 28 free throws. I don't even know how many the Mercury shot, but I'm sure it wasn't 28. I'm so sure. They know how to defend without fouling. So the Mercury just have to be better. And again, I'm looking at these stats and it's just not enough. Alyssa Thomas gave you 22 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, and was 9 of 14 from the field. Monique Akoa-Makani gave you 19 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and was 7 of 11 from the field. Broshawn, she has actually been really good to me, and I think that if he could elevate her and have if he could figure out how to make sure Broshawn plays well, Lexi Held plays well, and Ivana Nokic plays well, I really think that this team could be something, because there's nothing wrong with this performance from those other people. It's just the fact that you can't take care of the ball, and also you're not doing anything with your offense that's getting some of these other players going. Because if Nokic was shooting well, that'd be a different thing. If Lexi Held was giving you the same amount of points that she's going to give you a little bit later on in this week, we'll talk about, that's a completely different story. But Kalia Copper giving you 9 points and 4 rebounds, and she was 3 of 11. It's just not going to work. But also, you notice here that Kalia Copper struggles against really great defenses. The Valkyries have great defense, and that's the reason why you lose this game because of that. But also, her having 41 points in the game versus the Sparks, and then you look at this stat line, very strange. Very strange, and we're gonna dig deeper on that. We might look into that next week. Anyways, Broshawn gave you 10 points, 6 assists, 2 rebounds, and 2 steals, and was 4 of 6 from the field. And I put here in my notes, I'll repeat and echo what I just said. I would really love to see more of her. She's definitely a bright spot on the team, and I think, first of all, she doesn't take enough shots, but she's the one who's making the right plays. So I think the coach just needs to have some hard conversations is really all that needs to happen with this Mercury team. I would have sat Ka down and I would have seen what else somebody else could give me. You got to adjust to the matchup, and I don't think that he's doing that very well. For the Valkyries, Veronica Burton gave you 25 points, 8 assists, 3 rebounds, and was 7 of 15 from the field. Gabby Williams gave you 25 points, 4 rebounds. Great game for her. Kayla Thornton, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Kayla's still not quite looking like herself. Obviously, she had a tough injury and she's coming back from that. But I think if she can shoot and give you a little bit more consistently, I think this team, they might do things and they might move me. Janelle Salon had 11 points, 5 rebounds. But nobody outside of Veronica Burton and Gabby were super consistent, but this team's defense demands the best from their opponents, and I just don't think that the Mercury are in a place right now to give that. This game, compared to the one versus the Sparks, is very telling to me, and I think if anything, if they don't make any trades, which I don't really know what exactly the Mercury have to trade, I don't think they really have anything. If you're not able to do anything like that, this is going to be your season. It's going to be a lot of disappointment. It's going to be a lot of losing. All right. On Wednesday, we had 2 games. The first, Sun versus Tempo. The Tempo beat the Sun 106 to 102. The Sun beat them on the boards 42 to 28. Unfortunately, the Sun just couldn't take care of the ball. I think the Tempo had 12 steals and the Sun had 3. And then on top of that, the Sun turned the ball over 18 times to their 11. The Sun shot the ball better and got more from their bench, but weren't able to close it out in overtime. I think if they hit more free throws, maybe they're able to take this one, but it really is just the closing for this team. I think the Sun, they have never really fully been healthy at the same time. It's like sometimes they're playing without Brittany Griner, they're playing without Anise Morrow, sometimes they're playing without Aaliyah Edwards. And, it just, if they can get healthy, though, I do think that they can start pulling out some wins. Lila Lacan and Olivia Nelson-Ododa both fought out this game as well, and I don't think that was very helpful. You definitely need those two players in overtime. So, but they're young and they're learning, and I really, 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 really hope that soon, they're gonna get some more wins under their belt. But they have been playing some pretty tough teams, and even when they play teams that aren't that tough, they still struggle. So again, I do think that they're building towards something a little bit better. They're building towards wins, and hopefully we're going to be able to see that soon. For the Sun, they were without Brittany Griner and Anise Morrow, but Aaliyah Edwards went and gave you 24 points, 4 rebounds, was 8 of 9 from the field, and 7 of 12 from the free throw line. Lila Lacan gave you 24 points, 7 assists, and was 9 of 16 from the field. Sanaya Rivers gave you 12 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 blocks, and Olivia Nelson-Ododa gave you 9 points and 13 rebounds. For the Tempo, Brittany Sykes gave you 38 points, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and was 11 of 20 from the field. Marina gave you 21 points, 3 steals, was 8 of 20 from the field. I'm not moved by her or these numbers, and she was 4 of 12 from 3. So Laura Yuskaida gave you 19 points, 6 rebounds, 4 steals, and was 5 of 7 from the field. And Niara Sabli gave you 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. Next, we have Sparks versus Storm. The Sparks beat the Storm 88 to 83. Again, very close game throughout. The Sparks, they should be embarrassed that they barely won this game to me. Obviously, it could be anybody on any given night, but the Storm are a team that have, they've kind of shown that they struggle to close games, and they have a lot of young talent. So, you understand not winning these games in those moments, but the Sparks are just honestly, this is an awful team. The Sparks are just awful, and we're going to talk about that a little bit for the Monday games, but we're just going to keep it moving. I was genuinely impressed by the Storm in their game versus the Valkyries on Friday. And I'm actually very excited to talk about that game later. And because the Storm impressed me so much versus such a great defensive team, that's why. And then the Sparks also struggled against the Valkyries. It's embarrassing to me. They're far too talented for them to be struggling in this way. And it just comes down to Lynn Roberts. And genuinely, like at the end of this season, I need to see a thank you Lynn Roberts post, and we need to be looking for somebody else. Because again, it's inexcusable to me that she was unable to make what she has work. And especially against a team like the Valkyries. Because the only thing about the Valkyries is that they played really good defense. Their offense, sometimes it's questionable. And like I said, you can't consistently get something from a lot of players on that team, but they make it hard for you on the defensive end, and them not being able to match even that level of intensity in terms of offense, but also the fact that their defense is so bad. This is really inexcusable, and I hope to see the coach gone soon. The Sparks beat the Storm on the boards 38 to 35. Nneka Ogwumike gave you 24 points, 9 rebounds, and was 9 of 18 from the field. Kelsey Plum gave you 19 points, 11 assists, 4 steals, and was 6 of 17 from the field. She had a bit of an off night from the floor, but made up for it by, facilitating and sharing the ball. Cameron Brink gave you 15 points, 6 rebounds, and was 5 of 7 from the field. Dearica Hamby, definitely struggling right now. She gave you 10 rebounds and 6 points. I don't really know what it is. She doesn't really look very aggressive. And that really sucks because I do think that they need her to be playing at a certain level in order for them to win games. Like, it's nice that Ray Burrell is playing better, and it's nice that Cameron is figuring out like her foul situation and she's been aggressive. But Dearica Hamby struggling the way that she is, I'm thinking that it's because, it's not just her in the paint anymore. It's NECA, and obviously it's great that NECA's there and, NECA's doing what she does. But I do think that Dearica is struggling a little bit to like find her place and kind of like know her role and what they need of her. And I will say that even though she struggled this game and they won, I've noticed that whenever the games that she gives you like 20 plus, typically it's against teams that aren't that great, or it's a performance that didn't lead to a win. So I definitely think that that's something to flag and acknowledge, and we'll continue looking at that moving forward. But I do put it on the coach because she has been really great in previous seasons, but Lynn Roberts not being able to find a way to figure out how to get her back to that level of performance, I think is a bit telling of her coaching ability and her skills. So, yeah, and I think it also just comes down to the fact that I think if you give the Sparks roster to any other like coach that kind of has like a higher skill set and is a better coach, they're able to do something with this Sparks team. Like, it really is inexcusable that this roster that has these big names and has such great young talent, that a lot of them are either rotting on the bench or the offense just isn't suitable for their game. But if you were to give this team and this roster to Cheryl or to Becky, and some people said Natalie Nakase, and I can get behind that. I think if you give this team to any of those three coaches, they're able to make this a winning team, and they're able to get them to compete and be competitive. However, there were some people on Twitter when I had tweeted this though, and they were like, "Oh yeah, and Chris DeMarco." No, I'm not putting Chris DeMarco in this conversation because he hasn't proven to me that he is a better coach. I think that he has a better roster and that his players know what to do and when to do it. And I think that a lot of the winning that the Liberty have done has been because of Brianna Stewart, not because the coach is just this amazing coach and he's doing XYZ. No, I don't think that that's the case at all. So I think that he has a lot more to prove to me. He has a lot more to prove to me. And maybe when we do our coach rankings in a few weeks, he would have proven something to me. But so far, I'm not putting him up in that higher and upper echelon of coaching. He's just not there yet. And I'm watching y'all because some of y'all like to put people in the conversation who haven't done nothing yet. They ain't did nothing. You've proven nothing to me yet. It makes sense for me to say that about Cheryl and about Becky because they've proven to be coaches who know how to win. And even you can give it to Natalie because she was able to do something that had not been done by an expansion team in years, and that was make the playoffs, but also have a roster like that was able to get to the first round of the playoffs. So, yeah, but nobody else is in there. Nobody else is in that conversation. Anyways, for the Storm, they beat the Sparks in the paint 36-34. They just struggled to take care of the ball. They had 15 turnovers. They did shoot the ball better from the floor and the free throw line. All starters scored double digits, but they just weren't able to pull the win out. Natisha Heidemann gave you 16 points, 5 assists, and was 6 of 12 from the field. Dominique Malonga gave you 15 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and was 6 of 11 from the field. Flau'jae Johnson gave you 14 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. Awa Fam gave you 12 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, and was 4 of 6 from the field. And Jordan Horston is joining the party. She's getting a bit looser. She gave you 11 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and was 5 of 10 from the field. I really like that she's starting to settle in, and I'm very happy for her, especially coming off of her ACL injury. On Thursday, there were 4 games. The first, Sky versus Fever. The Fever beat the Sky 114 to 106. Again, the Sky getting whooped in the first quarter. They put on a performance to come back, and at the end of the day, like I've said before, they just can't finish the job. But also, the Fever, they love to give up a lead. And I think while that isn't great, the fact that they're able to still close out games, I think is the thing that makes it okay. You know, I do think that they do need to figure out how to like get the lead and then keep it and not have to worry about it. But it there is something to be said. We can't I'll never give them a 10, but we can give them a 6. They do know how to come back and, you know, get the momentum back, hit big shots, and that's going to be very important for them moving forward, especially once they get into the playoffs and everything. Being able to, you know, close out wins and everything like that is going to be very important. Anyways, today, this game, Sydney Taylor put on a masterclass. She is a bit streaky, but she hasn't played much, which I think is strange, especially with Rakia's injury. It seems that you would really want to put more weight behind a 3-level scorer like Sydney Taylor, and she's proven that she can be a 3-level scorer. I think it's going to be about opportunity, and obviously people talk about fit and everything like that, but her having such a great game and then like not getting many minutes in other scenarios, but starters playing so much time and not producing is very strange to me. And it seems very obvious what needs to happen there, but apparently it's not obvious to Tyler Marsh. So something to keep our eye on. For the Sky, Sydney Taylor gave us 30 points and was 10 of 14 from the field. Yes, you heard that right. 10 of 14. Skylar Diggins gave you 21 points, 3 rebounds, and was 7 of 15 from the field. And then Camilla, JC, and Azare combined for 30 points. That's it. There's nothing more to say good about the Sky. All right. For the Fever, they beat the Sky on the boards 46 to 34. They had more points in the paint as well, 58 to the Sky's 48. They also did well capitalizing on points off of turnovers, scoring 29 to the Sky's 20. Aaliyah Boston gave you 34 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks, and was 13 of 26 from the field. Caitlin had a great game, giving you 32 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds, was 8 of 18 from the field, and shot 15 free throws. It's very interesting to see how she's getting her points, and I'm gonna put a pin in that, and we're gonna continue that thought moving forward for the next few weeks. There's something to keep your eye on. And then Kelsey Mitchell gave you 19 points, 3 assists, 3 steals, and was 7 of 17 from the field. Lexi Hull gave you 11 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 steals. Next game we had Liberty versus Dream, and the Liberty beat the Dream 104 to 90. For me, New York, they just this wasn't even like a good game for the Liberty. I think that's the part that really bothers me. The Dream could have won this game, and we're going to talk about how and why. But we'll start off by what the Liberty did well, and they beat them on the boards 40 to 24. Again, like I said, I think they're giving up a lot of size. But I still just don't think that's just not completely the entirety of the story. The Liberty had a lot of turnovers. They had 19. The Dream had 5. I think the Dream just have to play smarter. They didn't make them pay when they were sent to the line. I think a lot of people struggle from the free throw line. I think they shot 15 of 27. And then they forced 19 turnovers. And then they still lost the game. And that's when you're like, okay, well, how did they lose a game if they forced 19 turnovers? But it's because they shot the ball poorly. And again, they shouldn't be shooting the ball poorly because you can attack the paint. You can do these things. And again, that's the thing that's frustrating about this team and about this coach. I get it. Threes, analytically, that's how you win games. But you're losing games because of all the threes you're shooting. So I think it's just like, when are they going to click? When is it going to click for them? I don't know. For the Liberty, they held Angel to 3 rebounds at the half. The announcers pointed out that Atlanta starters were playing heavy minutes versus the Sky. But honestly, that's just not even a good enough excuse. Brianna Stewart gave you 19 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and was 5 of 9 from the field. Satu Sabali gave you 19 points, 3 rebounds, and was 5 of 9 from the field. Marine Johannes gave you 17 points, was 5 of 6 from the field. And Jonquel Jones gave you 16 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks. She had a good game, but she also had 5 fouls. And I think if the Dream had shot better from the free throw line and they lost this game, it would have been on her, because there were a couple of fouls in this game, but also just honestly in every game, Jonquel just be doing a little too much. Like, she does things that she doesn't need to do to, stop the opposing team from scoring the ball. And I would just really like to see her, play a little bit more composed. And I think, obviously, I said that last season, but I do think that that's what makes this team a championship team, is Jonquel being able to perform at this level, but also remain poised about her emotions, and kind of like not letting, the opposing team kind of get her upset and angry, and like, making basketball plays that aren't necessary. Anywho, Pauline Astier gave you 16 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and was 6 of 10 from the field. For the Dream, they shot 9 of 29 from 3. 15 of 27 from the free throw line. 9 of 29 is just, that's terrible. That is just awful. And I don't even know what percentage that is off the top of my head, but it's not great. Even just saying it like that. 9 of 29 from 3. However, Angel still went out there and gave you 25 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and was 11 of 22 from the field. Ryan Howard gave you 24 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals, and was 7 of 8 from the field, 5 of 13 from 3. And Alicia Gray gave you 18 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and was 7 of 11 from the field. But the fact that nobody else really gave you great numbers, that's a thing sticking out to me. The Dream coach and the player, they have some things to work on for sure. But hopefully they're going to be able to put some stuff together soon. Otherwise, I don't really know where we go from here with this team and what the trajectory is for them moving forward. Next, we have Mercury versus Wings. The Wings beat the Mercury 85-70. The Wings beat them on the board 37-30. They had more points off of turnovers, 23 to the Mercury's 10. They also just shot better from the floor. They shot 52% and the Mercury shot 39%. Phoenix had 4 turnovers to start the first quarter. And in this game, like I had mentioned previously, I noted I liked Paige starting the game with mid-range shots, and, that just led to her shooting the ball a bit better down the stretch. Phoenix had a few possessions to open the game where they struggled to score and couldn't get stops. And in the second half of the first quarter, they came out after a timeout a bit more aggressive, and they were able to cut the deficit. And I think that was really great for them. But I also think that the coach needs to do more of that. When you see the team struggling, call the timeout and make some adjustments. Talk to them, have them come out more aggressive, tell them what they need to do, what they're not doing. And I feel like there's a lot of him not doing that. And that's just like the basics of coaching, game management. And sometimes I feel like he's not even worried about doing that. So I hope to see him do better moving forward. In the second quarter, Kara Lawson, who was one of the commentators for this game, which I really thoroughly enjoyed. I love hearing some of the really great coaches and even some of the really great players commentate on the game and share their thoughts and opinions. But during the game, she mentioned that the Mercury are just missing each other. And I think you definitely saw that throughout this game, but also throughout most of the games in the past, and then other ones that happened this week. I appreciated her insight and just really enjoyed her as an analyst, and I hope that we hear more from her moving forward. For the Mercury, Lexi Held gave you 17 points, 4 rebounds, and was 6 of 10 from the field. Kalia Copper, 13 points, 3 assists, 3 of 10 from the field. And then nobody really played well outside of Lexi, honestly. I really only brought the Kalia thing up because, again, you see her struggle from the field here, 3 of 10. And then previously in the other game, she shot the 9 points, 4 rebounds, and she was 3 of 11 from the field. And then again, this is the way that she plays against teams that have great defense and are a bit more dominant. And then, you have the game versus the Sparks, and they're not good. So it makes you think. It makes you think a lot and very hard. For the Wings, Paige gave you 31 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and was 14 of 20 from the field. Jessica Shepard gave you 17 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and was 7 of 8 from the field. And AZ gave you 17 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, and was 7 of 13 from the field. Really great performance from the 3 of them. Last game on Thursday, we had Aces versus Fire, and the Aces beat the Fire 105-89. The Fire beat them in the paint 54-32. I think that was a really great matchup. Meg Gustafson versus Asia and Alyssa and everything. I thought that was fun. The Aces turned the ball over 14 times, but they shot the ball better, and they're just overall have a more capable offense. And, they have more players that can contribute to the offense as well. For the Aces, Asia gave you 32 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, and was 10 of 20 from the field. Chelsea Gray gave you 29 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and was 10 of 15 from the field. Jackie Young gave you 18 points, 8 rebounds, 10 assists, and was 7 of 15 from the field. Nalissa Smith gave you 12 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and Stephanie Talbot gave you 8 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. Again, the Aces are just one of those teams that have an embarrassment of riches. Anybody can go out there and give you that performance, but also sometimes they can't. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in their game versus the Wings for Monday. For the Fire, I have a lot of things to say. First of all, they struggled on the boards, which makes sense because they are an undersized team, but I still I can't. The thing about the Fire is I can't excuse them losing because they're undersized, because that wasn't something that was impactful for why you were winning games previously. I think the Fire's issue is their lack of adjustments in rotations, but also my other thing is I would really, 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 really love to see Teja Oblak playing next to Carla sometimes. Maybe it just be the closing minutes or something. But for me, I feel like Teja is just a lot better when it comes to running the offense. But I would love to see her do that with Carla on the floor. I think, not to say that it's night and day when they're on the floor, but I do think that it's a lot to ask of a player as young as Carla. And I will say that I definitely think it's possible. It is going to be about her getting a lot of reps in when it comes to closing games. But when they are playing teams like the Aces, or just teams that are contenders, because they played the Lynx on Monday as well, and they had a similar issue. It was the scoring that wasn't there for them, but it was also just the way that the offense looked in a general sense. I just think that the offense flows really well with Teja on the floor, and Carla's obviously good as well, but I would love to see them play together. Carla is a good scorer. I think it'd be really nice for her to not have to focus on facilitating and playmaking all of the time. And when he doesn't play her with somebody who's capable of running an offense in the same way that Teja is, I think, you're just putting a lot on her shoulders. And a lot of times, she is somebody who can go out there and get you a basket off the dribble, obviously catch and shoot three. We've seen her win these games in different ways, so we know that she's capable of doing that. But also, I think it's important for the coach to not always leave it up to only her to do certain things. I don't know if that's making sense, but I feel like I would really love to see the both of them on the floor together to close out a game. And I don't know who you take off the floor for that to happen, but I do think that it would be beneficial for them moving forward. Um, I also think that the coach is just like afraid to try some new things, like, which is strange to me because he's always talking about analytics, but I don't feel that he makes enough adjustments in game. And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that like he has this miraculous roster and he has these big names, because realistically he doesn't. But I do think that he has a good roster here, and they are like losing some winnable games, but we've seen them be great. But also at the same time that was working, like I said before, you have to make adjustments and you have to like consistently and all the time be evolving like your game plan for each matchup. But also, everybody can watch film. I can watch film. Obviously, the opposing team can watch film. The scouting people can watch film and they learn what you're doing and how you're doing it. And so, yeah, when you're a team that only shoots threes and you struggle on the boards because you're undersized, you do have to figure out ways to combat that. But I also, at the same time, think that that's a really great adjustment that he needs to make. But also, I think that some of these coaches kind of have to realize, and this is like not in a bad way, but you do kind of have to recognize when you don't have the personnel to pull off some of the things that you envision in your mind. Like, obviously, this is a team that has won shooting the three, but also that's not how you win games every night. And I think, again, I think it's just about the way that he envisions his offensive scheme. It's just like, even though everything sounds great in your head, but that doesn't mean that like the reality of the situation is the same that it is in your head. Like, your head is idealistic. You can't really like adjust too much for like external factors. So I would love to see him try something new. And, I hope that, some people push him to try something new, because I think that this is a good team and that they're going to be capable of making it to the playoffs, but he's going to have to change some things up, and he's going to have to continue to, evolve what he's asking of his players based on the matchup and everything. So to that point, like I said, I feel the same way about Nate Tibbetts and Carl Semesco. They have ideas in their head about how they want to win, and they have those ideas because of the analytics. The analytics support those ideas, yes, but for the same reason that we're not stats watchers, is the same reason that the analytics aren't telling the whole story. Like, the stats don't tell the whole story, so the analytics don't either. Yes, you can win games shooting the three, but if you don't have the personnel to shoot the threes consistently, it doesn't make sense for that to be your only game plan. And also, what's your counter for when that's taken away? Like, are you shooting the mid-range? What plays are you running to get, some of your players started and going and in rhythm? And I feel like all three of those coaches, and even Lynn Roberts, I don't know what the hell Lynn Roberts got going on, but Nate Tibbetts and Carl and Alex, they all have certain ways they want their teams to play. And I think it's important that they realize that that's not always going to win the game. It's obviously, in my head, it's great if you can sit there and shoot the three at a high caliber, you're going to win the games. Yeah, sure. But if you're not doing that well, what's the backup plan? How are we adjusting to what we're seeing in real time? And I'm not seeing enough of that from any of these coaches. But we'll get into the stats. Carla Lake gave you 18 points, 8 assists, 3 rebounds, and was 8 of 13 from the field. Megan Gustafson gave you 17 points and was 7 of 13 from the field. And Sarah Ashley, the closer, Barker, gave you 14 points, 4 assists, and was 6 of 11 from the field. Bridget Carlton gave you 13 points, and Teja Oblak gave you 9 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds. On Friday, there were 2 games. The first was Tempo versus Mystics, and the Mystics beat the Tempo in crunch time with a game winner to walk it off by Sonia Citron, 86-85. It was a pretty evenly matched game for the most part. I went to get a slushie like a few minutes after halftime, and by the time I came back, my phone was telling me that the Mystics were down, and so I ran to my computer to watch the closing minutes. And like I said before, phenomenal game winner from Sonia Citron. I was gonna go back and like watch what happened after I went to go get the slushie, but I didn't really feel like it, so I didn't. But for the tempo, Marina gave you 27 points, 3 assists, and was 9 of 15 from the field. Brittany Sykes gave you 20 points, 3 assists, and was 7 of 14 from the field. Julie Alamon gave you 9 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, 3 steals, and was 4 of 5 from the field. I'm really excited for Kiki Rice to come back because Brittany Sykes got hurt in the game on Tuesday when they played the Fever. And Julie Alamon was also out. She got hurt. And I'm pretty sure Nayara Sabali's out with some injury. I don't really know what her injury is. It's like on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it on top of my head. I would just really, they were playing better basketball with Kiki on the floor, you know? And I feel like she was also, I wanted her in Rookie of the Year conversation, so I hope that she's going to be back soon. But the tempo, they just can't stay healthy right now. And I think that that's one of their biggest issues right now. But we'll talk about that at some other time. For the Mystics, again, very young team that's been struggling a bit, especially after losing Kiki. And they're just undersized in like every other position. Like obviously you have Lauren Betts, and Lauren has been playing great. She's been having some really good showings, and I would love to see more people talking about that. In this game in particular, she gave you 18 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 steals, and was 8 of 9 from the field. But she's been great. I really think it's the guards. It's the guard play, and it's definitely the coach as well. Sydney Johnson will be getting his lashings in next week. I need to figure out what that situation is going on, but it's weird that he's struggling to get the guards to score, but also he doesn't play Lucy Olsen, you know, and that's somebody who can go out there and give you 20, depending on what you're doing, what you're drawing up. And I don't know. I think he just has to figure this out. Michaela Onyenwere gave you 17 points, 8 rebounds, and was 7 of 15 from the field. Sonia Citron gave you 17 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and was 6 of 16 from the field. And Dugalich gave you 10 points and 6 rebounds. Last game we had was Valkyries versus Storm. The Valkyries beat the Storm 76-72. The Valks got sloppy a bit, and low-key, that's a pattern for them. Sometimes they get a little bit sloppy in the third quarter, and, you know, they kind of allow teams to come back or take the lead. But they were able to pull it out. The Storm really won me over this game. I think I hadn't really, like, sat down and watched them for real in a while. And on Sunday, like, I can see the vision. They have some bright spots, and I can see the vision there. I think it's just going to be about executing down the stretch. This game in particular, Natisha Heidemann had been shooting the ball really well, and she tried to get the ball out of her hands to close out the game, but Flage she wasn't able to get it. And she's a rookie, so you're like, there's gonna be another moment. There's gonna be a lot of moments for her to learn from, and her defense is there. It's just like in the closing minutes and offensively, she's struggling a bit with her shot and her shot selection at times. But there's no doubt in my mind that, you know, she's going to rise to the occasion. And when she does, I think that obviously this team is going to be better for it. Awa has been great. Dominique Malonga obviously has been phenomenal. Natisha Heidemann is having one of her best seasons so far. She's been very consistent. It is just going to be about that. But also, I'm ready for Izzy Magbagor to get back in there. I think they definitely miss her size and her rebounding. And if Jordan Horston can give you a little bit more as well, I think they have the pieces there. It's just, you know, they got to get their reps up and they got to figure out how to close games. And I think the coach also kind of has to know who to put where and when. And also, I don't know if this was the game or not, but I think everybody kind of scored. Not too many people scored double digits, but they still had some good pieces there. Anyways, for the Valkyries, Kayla and Chechi Zandalasini struggled from the floor. Janelle Salon fouled out, and that was a big momentum swing, and I thought the Storm were going to take the game, but they weren't able to close it out. Janelle Salon gave you 22 points, 7 rebounds, and was 7 of 14 from the field. Gabby Williams gave you 19 points, 4 assists. Tiffany Hayes came off the bench and gave you 17 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. And Veronica Burton gave you 11 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals. For the Storm, they shot the ball better from the field and behind the arc. I think if they could have just knocked down a few more free throws and maybe, you know, in those final 2 or 3 possessions that they had they been able to score, I think they would have been able to, you know, pull out the win. But the Valkyries defense definitely made it tough on them. Natisha Heidemann had an amazing performance, and she'll be the only one that I highlight here, but 26 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals. I think she just needs help, consistent help, and I think she has the help there. She's just going to have to weather the storm a bit with this team. And, you know, the same goes for Jade Melvin and all the other stuff. So anyways, let's get into Saturday's games. There were 4. The first, Fever versus Sun. The Fever beat the Sun 85-75. And while that number isn't tight, actually watching the game, they had it. They were in there. This was honestly a very unserious game. Another example of the Fever giving up leads to teams that, you know, they shouldn't even have a chance of winning, but they let them in there. They are always able to close out the game. So again, you can't be mad at them, but they just, I would like to see them win and like, it be like a statement win, not just like, we pulled it out in crunch time. But again, I do think it's great practice for some of the tougher games moving forward. The Fever's turnovers allowed the Sun to get back in the game. I also feel like the refs' whistles, that was very strange to me. I didn't love watching this game. First of all, because of all the stoppage time. There were a lot of fouls called. And I also felt like there was a lot of inconsistency with the calls that were being made. It was like the Fever were allowed to play physically, but everything the Sun did on defense was considered a foul. And I just don't think it's fun to watch games like that. But also, like, as a player, it must be extremely frustrating to play through stuff like that as well. The Sun defense forced 17 turnovers and they scored 25 points off of those, but they weren't able to close the game and win it. For the Fever, Caitlin gave you 25 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, and was 10 of 17 from the field. Definitely a better night from the field for her. Kelsey Mitchell gave you 19 points, 5 assists. Sophie Cunningham gave you 11 points and was 4 of 5 from the field. Aaliyah Boston gave you 13 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. Again, this is kind of one of those matchups for her where, you know, Brittany Griner and Olivia Nelson-Adota are some more, you know, they're able to agitate her a little bit and kind of slow her down when it comes to scoring. And then Monique Billings gave you 10 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks. For the Sun, Olivia Nelson-Adota gave you 12 points, 7 rebounds, and was 6 of 12 from the field. Lila Khan gave you 11 points, 7 assists, 4 steals, and was 5 of 9 from the field. And Brittany Griner gave you 10 points, 4 assists, and 2 blocks. Next up, we have Lynx versus Aces. This is a really great game. I watched the first half of this, and then I came home later on in the week and watched it because I was at Buffalo Wild Wings with my friends to watch the New York Knicks win the championship over the San Antonio Spurs. I was rooting for the Spurs, okay? But happy for the Knicks. Shout out to them. I had a great time down at Buffalo Wild Wings. I ate some really great food. Anyways, the Aces took this game 100-97. Really great and exciting game. The beginning had me nervous. I think the Lynx, it kind of took them a second to settle in. But once they did, Olivia was able to get going, as well as Kayla, who has, like I said before, has been having a rough time shooting, but this was a really great game for her. The Aces were honestly hitting some crazy shots. Chelsea Gray had an amazing performance at the beginning of the game. It was honestly like, it's really upsetting to watch the Aces play so well versus this team and want to play hard and everything and really force them to be great. And then for them to go and play the Wings, and that game versus the Wings, very embarrassing showing for the Aces. I'll be really honest. Terrible defense, and then also the offense was just not great from Chelsea or Jackie. But I've said it before, and I'll say it here: losing by 3 without your number one option, I will never be mad at that. I'm not mad at all. People were like, "Oh, you're trying to cope." And what's wrong with that? I'm really not mad at the Lynx losing by 3. Like, you don't even have your best player on the floor. You don't even have maybe like your third or fourth best player in Dorky Uhas either. So I'm completely very happy with this loss. Very pleased. Aces just shot the ball a little bit better and I think imposed their will. But I think Olivia was just very crafty and she had some really great finishes around the rim, especially against Asia. And, you know, her shot selection, she's just somebody who she has an eye for the game. She doesn't have to like wait for it to slow down for her. I know a lot of times like people say that about rookies and it's slowed down for her. She has a great eye for the game and I really think this team can win a championship and I'm excited to see them attempt to do it moving forward. For the Lynx, Olivia Miles gave you 29 points, 4 rebounds, and was 11 of 20 from the field. Natasha Howard gave you 22 points, 9 rebounds, 4 steals, and was 8 of 12 from the field. Kaylin McBride gave you 19 points, 5 assists, 2 steals, and was 6 of 14 from the field. Not that great efficiency-wise, but it looked better in game. You know what I'm saying? It looked better in game because she was hitting shots when they needed them the most. And then Courtney Williams gave you 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. For the Aces, Asia gave you 24 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals, and was 9 of 15 from the field. Chelsea Gray gave you 23 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, was 7 of 15 from the field, 6 of 10 from 3. Jackie gave you 16 points, 10 assists, 5 rebounds, and was 5 of 10 from the field. And Alyssa Smith gave you 15 points, 6 rebounds, and was 7 of 9 from the field. Next game we have Wings versus Fire. The Fire beat the Wings 84-83. They were without Paige, and the Fire just, in my mind, I went into it, especially once we found out Paige was not going to be playing. I was like, the Fire are winning this one because I think it was just time for them to have a win. They've been on a losing skid for a while now, and all the starters were in double figures, so this was a great game for them. For the Wings, Dearica gave you 22 points, 6 rebounds, and was 7 of 16 from the field. Izzy gave you 18 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Isaiah James had a big night and started this game. She gave you 17 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and Jessica Shepard gave you 13 points, 14 rebounds, and was 5 of 10 from the field. For the Fire, we all need to be out there voting for Bridget Carlton for All-Star, okay? I want that lady in! Anyways, Bridget Carlton, 20 points, 4 rebounds, 6 of 10 from 3. Mind you, she is the second leading scorer in 3-pointers made, all right? And she's also second in steals in the league, all right? Write that down. Write that down. Megan Gustafson gave you 16 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and was 7 of 11 from the field. Emily Inkster gave you 11 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks. Sarah Ashley Barker gave you 10 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. And Carla Lake gave you 10 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds. Last game on Saturday, we had Sparks versus Mercury, and the Sparks beat the Mercury 111-102. Not much defense played this game, but still, we move. For the Sparks, Ray Burrell played well in the non-KP minutes. There was also some pretty good ball movement in the third quarter, and I think Nneka Ogwumike did a great job of helping space the floor and knocking down threes down the stretch. Kelsey Plum gave you a phenomenal performance again against a team that is not very good defensively, and really the same can be said about the Sparks, but I digress. Kelsey Plum, 43 points, 7 assists, 14 of 26 from the field. Ray Burrell, 24 points, 3 rebounds, and was 9 of 15 from the field. Nneka Ogwumike gave you 15 points, 15 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks, and was 6 of 11 from the field. And Cameron Brink gave you 9 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 blocks. For the Mercury, the only real person to show up and match that energy that Kelsey Plum had was Kalia Copper, who gave you 41 points, 10 rebounds, and was 16 of 30 from the field. Yes, you heard that right. 16 of 30, 41 points, 10 rebounds. But again, she gave that to you against a team that does not play defense, or does not play defense well. So sit with that. Anyways, Natasha Mack gave you 11 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, and 3 blocks. And Alyssa Thomas gave you 10 points, 12 assists, 7 rebounds. On Sunday, there were 2 games. The first, Dream versus Tempo. The Dream beat the Tempo 102-77. I'm supposed to be looking at my notes right now, I said. For the Dream versus Tempo game, the Dream started off slow, okay? They were shooting 6 of 25 to start the game, which is honestly god-awful. Nobody was really attacking the paint but Angel until like there were 2 minutes left in the first quarter. I think Angel just needs rebounding help, and I think that this is the game where it became apparent to me about them being undersized and really needing, the size of Bree Jones. But like I said before, I still just don't think that that's like a good enough excuse for why they're losing games. The second quarter, they had more paint touches, and that helped open up the perimeter. Nas and Angel on the floor together. They just give up too much size. And yes, they're playing Nas a lot because they want the floor to be stretched and they want to stretch out the defense, like the opposing team's defense. But I don't know. I just don't think that that's sustainable basketball, but we'll see. And they were able to pull this game out because of the Izzy Harrison ejection. I also felt like Izzy, was having a good game, like I said before, but she threw it away on that last play. But I did enjoy the matchup, and I think, you also enjoy that matchup a little bit more because they are, two players who have played on the same team before. So, she obviously knows Angel's game and, is capable of matching her intensity and her level of play. I just wish that we could have, seen the matchup. Anywho, for the Dream, Alicia Gray gave you 26 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds, and was 8 of 14 from the field. Ryan Howard gave you 24 points, 6 rebounds, 3 blocks, and was 9 of 18 from the field. Isabel Borlez gave you 17 points, 3 rebounds, and was 5 of 6 from the field. And she's definitely a player that I enjoy watching. I think if he would play her more, she'd be able to definitely contribute, numbers like this. She's a great shooter, and I hope that we get to see more of her moving forward. Angel gave you 15 points, 17 rebounds, and Jordan Canada gave you 9 assists, 5 rebounds, and 3 steals. For the Tempo, Izzy Harrison, before she was ejected, gave you 17 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 blocks, and she was 6 of 11 from the field. Julie Alamon gave you 13 points, 6 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Maria Conde gave you 12 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. Brittany Sykes gave you 11 points, 4 assists. And Marina Mabry was held to 9 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and was 2 of 11 from the field. Again, this Tempo team, it is about health for them. But I also think that they're not playing a sustainable winning brand of basketball between the two of them. So, well, now Brittany Sykes is hurt, and I hope that she's okay. But hope she's not out for too long. But I'm interested to see how Marina and also how the coach navigate this moving forward. Like, what are we going to do? Are you still putting in the same effort? Are you just chucking up threes? Are you going to get a little bit more methodical with it? Are you going to add more to your bag? I think that's my biggest thing for Marina. I like Marina. I would love to see her play a winning brand of basketball, though. And I don't know that I always believe that I'm getting that when I watch it, even when she has 20 and 30-point games. So, anyways, next we have Mystics versus Liberty. The Liberty beat the Mystics 86-64. This is a very embarrassing game in my mind. This is a good return game for Sabrina, though. The Mystics aren't that great, so this is a really great game for her to come back and, kind of get some minutes under her belt, see what her shot's looking like, pass the ball. Very interested to see, again, how Chris DeMarco is going to handle the situation. But I think my biggest thing, I think that, and I tweeted this, and we're going to have a conversation about it, but I was like, Shakira Austin not passing the ball back is one of the biggest reasons that the Mystics lose games. And somebody else who is a Mystics fan, they were like, that's not true, and blase, blase, blase. I'm going to tell you why I say that. The other day versus the Fever, a week ago, when I got on this podcast and I told y'all how they lost the game, and it was because of Cody McMahon's defense in the moment, yes, but Shakira Austin, I also had pointed out the fact that Georgia Amor was wide open next to her on the wing to her right, but she never passed the ball back and she got doubled and they stole the ball right out of her hands. And again, that's what they did this game. It doesn't take much to beat the misses because they do the same shit and they don't have the personnel to pull off anything. And again, they're really young, they're learning, they're growing, but I do blame the coach. I do, because he's also the GM, and first of all, he should have accounted for that. And secondly, I just think, for me personally, I like Shakira Austin. I have praised elements of her game and Unrivaled and also in the WNBA season, but she can be a ball hog and she can be a little bit selfish, and it just comes down to that. I don't love saying that, but also to a certain extent, and I do think that everyone on the team is affected by Kiki not being there, but it's just like she'll call for the ball and she doesn't have a good enough handle of the ball to be calling for it the way that she is. And she is not a playmaker. She's not. I'm so sorry. She's not. And that is what's losing them games, because it's losing them possessions. She was over there trying to shoot the ball and stuff, and she was getting her shit blocked. Everybody was getting their shit blocked, honestly, because they don't have guards that are shooters. And they have guards and they have players that hesitate. And that's another issue they have. But when I said that Shakira is one of the reasons that they be losing games, I meant that with my chest, because I had seen it right there in the moment. She don't pass the ball back. There were a couple of times where Georgia passed her the ball and she didn't pass it back. She's trying to create a play, and that's not her game. It's not your game to be dribbling the ball. She was losing possession of the ball and turning it over, and it's just stuff like that. And I expect her to be better because she is a veteran. And then the person on Twitter was like, oh, well, that's not fair, because I could say, because they were saying Georgia Amor she's not very good and blah, 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 blah. But I'm not accepting that, because it's her first year off an ACL injury. You know, how she plays in the seasons moving forward, that's something else, but she does have to get adjusted. It doesn't matter how much basketball you've played previously and how much basketball you watch. You do have to, in those moments, be able to execute. And, you know, she needs to learn those moments. Like, it's her first year. It's basically her rookie year because she didn't get her rookie year last season. And I don't like that people are kind of nitpicking at that. And then also on top of that, they were like, well, it's on the other teammates to get in her line of sight, and, you know, so she knows to pass the ball to you. And that has never, ever, ever been the case in basketball. People are praised for being able to have great floor vision and know where their teammates are at and making passes to them. Like, it's not on your teammate to get in your line of sight so that you can pass in the ball. No, you need to know what you're capable of doing and what you're not capable of doing. And Shakira Austin is not capable of facilitating. And she's also like, she doesn't have, that's not her game. If she wants that to be her game, fine. We'll work on that moving forward. But that is not the game that she has shown us presently. And her attempting to do that against this team, I think in my mind, was a bad idea. And especially as a vet on this team. And she knows the personnel that's in there. You know Brianna Stewart is in there. You know John Quell Jones is in there. And these are high skill bigs. And you're sitting there trying to shoot shots. I don't think so. You're sitting there trying to facilitate and dribble the ball. No, that's not your game. That's not your game. Anyways, so I do think that Shakira and Cody are definitely some players who need to learn their role, because there were a couple of shots that Cody took. Her shot selection is not very good. But there were a couple of shots that she took that were just not in the rhythm of the offense, and they weren't high IQ shots either. Like, I will give the liberty that they were playing good defense, but also like the fact that so many of these players hesitate when they see a defender in front of them, and so many of them don't have counters. And I put that on the coach for also not like adjusting his game plan. Like, he's not doing well right now, and he definitely needs to be called out. And so here that is. Next up, I feel like the Liberty did a really great job of clogging the paint. And once they did that, the Mystics just had no answer for them, because all the guards can do is shoot in the paint and get some layups and stuff. Nobody outside. And they were doing a really great job of making sure Sonia wasn't getting great looks. And so it's like, you could sit here and say like Sonia only had 12 points and 3 rebounds, but to that point, she is such a great player that I think Brianna Stewart herself even said, like, we were just trying our best to make her shots tough. And when she's also one of the only good players on the floor, it's going to be really hard to win a game when you only have Michaela Onyenwere giving you 17 points, 4 rebounds, and she was 7 to 10 from the field. Great showing from her. And again, they made it tough on Sonia, but it's also like, what is Sonia supposed to do if the people around her aren't threats and also are like hesitating to make plays? And like, it's not even like people were adjusting and attempting to get to get to the free throw line or something. Like, Sydney Johnson has to be better in matchups like this and in moments like this. I don't think it's 100% on these players, especially because this team is so young. The Mystics just looked very disjointed. Like I said before, they're missing Kiki, and they struggle to score against good teams, contending teams at that. But they also did not do a very good job of defending either. And I also noted here that the coach needs to be better. So I'm interested to see what they do this upcoming week. And, we'll see what happens there. But this matchup was very bad. I did not like it. For the Mystics, I told you their stats already. But for the Liberty, their stats, everyone contributed. And it just didn't take much to win this game. And I think, like I said, Sabrina choosing to come back against this team, I feel like was very smart. Because they are a young team. You can go in there and get your legs under you. And, like I said, you can see where your shot's at. You can pass the ball, come in slow, minutes restriction, stuff like that. So I hope they're able to figure out what happens there. I think somebody actually said something very interesting on TikTok the other day when I was talking about Sabrina last week. I think I had mentioned, I'm interested to see how Chris DeMarco is going to be able to, what he's going to ask of each player and what this team looks like moving forward once Sabrina comes back. And they kind of brought up the fact that that they think that the Liberty are always going to be attempting to figure out who fits next to Sabrina, but they're never really going to like question Sabrina's game, And I think that that's very interesting because that is a conversation that people have about Sabrina. And I've said it before, I think she's a great shooter, but I do think that a lot of people are higher on her than she's proven to be, in my mind. Like, Sabrina has like the makings and workings of a good player archetype, but also at the same time, like I said, I think she kind of gets bailed out a lot because she has such great teammates, and they hide some of her weaker spots. So I'm interested to see if she's able to rise to the moments that she needs to in order for, her to have a better season in my mind. I think that Sabrina has a lot to prove still. She just having a championship to me, and especially how she played during that championship run, I need to see more from her before I'm willing to be like, Sabrina is the 1A on this team. And I think that we know she's not, but I'm interested to see what is done to get her to that point. What does she do? What does she change? Does the coach like put her in a situation like that, or did he continuously, lean on Brianna? Again, I do think that Sabrina coming back to the team is better for everyone involved because it takes pressure off of everyone, right? But there is still a conversation to be had about Sabrina showing us and proving to us that she is one of those upper echelon, higher caliber players. And I haven't seen that yet. And I'm hoping that this season is going to be the one. Anyways, when it comes to the stats, I'm only going to, bring up 2 people. Jonquel Jones gave you 20 points, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks, and Brianna Stewart gave you 14 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 blocks. And again, it was very easy because this team, they're not very good. Anyways, we're going to close it out with Monday's games. There were 3. I have to pull up my stats. So first game, we have Wings versus Aces. The Wings beat the Aces 96-66. And like I said, this is a very embarrassing showing to me because it's just like, I don't know how you go out there and you want to play so hard versus the Lynx and the number 1 team in the league, but then you sit here and like, you play like this. Anyways, the Wings beat them in the paint 42-40, which I don't think is that crazy. So, like, it's whatever. But they did win the rebounding battle 41-31. And I think that's a bit inexcusable. It is turnovers. Ooh, the Aces turned the ball over 14 times to the Wings 7. But let's look at the stats here. Jewel Lloyd gave you 21 points. Wow. Never seen her play that well before. She gave you 8 of 14 from the field and was 5 of 9 from 3. A'ja Wilson gave you 18 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals. She was 8 of 15 from the floor, but then nobody else played well. Nelissa Smith gave you 4 of 7. How many points she have? 9 points. Yeah, nobody else played well, actually. Jackie Young was 3 of 13 from the field. That's not good enough. Chelsea Gray, 0 of 5. This is what I'm talking about. You go out there and you play so well against the Lynx, and you did all that for what? Like, I don't understand the Aces. They're a very weird team. You know, they are without Kennedy Carter, but that's and Dana Evans, but I still just like that's not good enough. Y'all got the same pieces that you had the other night. Very, very weird, very strange. Anyways, for the Wings, like I said, Enrique's been playing very good, very well. She had 22 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and was 6 of 16 from the field, 5 of 11 from 3. AZ gave you 19 points, and she was 8 of 9 from the field, very efficient. And Jessica Shepard gave you 15 points, 15 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals, and was 4 of 6 from the field. And Owak had a pretty good game. She gave you 7 points, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks. She was 3 of 9 from the field, not super efficient. And Paige she struggled. But her and Isaiah, they combined for 20 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. Not terrible, but also not great and not really what we're used to seeing from Paige. So them being able to pull out that win again, and again, you know, that comes down to the defense that was being played on Paige, but Ace is still sold on that one. Next, we have Lynx versus Fire. I was very locked in and focused to that game, although the game was pretty much over after the second quarter. Really, the Lynx beat the Fire 107-74. Let's look at the game charts. Yeah, the Minnesota just out-rebounded them 40-27. They shared the ball a bit better. They had 31 assists to the Fire's 21. They had 14 steals, 5 blocks. They forced 21 turnovers, and Portland just they looked terrible this game. They the Lynx beat them in points in the paint and second chance points and fast break points. I will say the Fire's bench gave you 35 points, but I mean, when the starters only gave you 39, I was happy that Bridget was back, in Minnesota, but Minnesota definitely cooked them. Yeah, pretty badly. And honestly, this wasn't even one of their best games. Is again, one of the things that really shocks and surprises me. Bridget Carlton, she struggled from the floor, but that's by design. Everybody scored some points, but only 2 people had double figures, and that was Carla Late and Frida Berner, and they only had 10 points. So nothing to see here. We won't even talk about anything else. But for the Lynx, a lot of people in double figures, the starters, and then also you have about 2 people on the bench in Kosu and Maya Caldwell, who combined to give you 22 points, and they were pretty efficient. They were 8 of 14 from the field combined. And then, of course, you have Kayla McBride, who gave you 14 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. And she didn't have that great of a night from the field, but again, she offered you a lot. Nia Coffey gave you 15 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. She is a defensive anchor for them for sure. Cheryl Reese said it herself. She was 6 of 9 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3. It's very easy to score on Portland, no shade. Natasha Howard, 18 points, 6 rebounds, 2 steals. She was 6 of 11 from the field. Courtney Williams gave you 16 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and she was 7 of 10 from the field. And Olivia Miles had a quieter night, but still gave you 12 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, and was 6 of 8 from the field. So very efficient night for her. And lastly, what do we have? Sparks versus Valkyries, and this was the game where I was like, dang, this team sucks, and I went and made a TikTok about it. It was so bad. And a lot of people agree with me, which I feel like that's more embarrassing than anything. Let's see what the stats are giving us. This Sparks versus Valkyries game, the Valkyries beat the Sparks 78-58. This is just really embarrassing. This is really the game where I'm like, at this point, it's a cry for help. You know, NECA and just nobody played well. Like, Ray Burrell gave you 13 points. Cameron gave you 10 points. Nobody else was able to do anything for you. I think Erica Wheeler giving you 0 points. That's not good enough, you know. Kelsey Plum, she fouled out this game, and there were some people who were like, oh, she quit on the team. But I think that this is just a very frustrating situation for everybody involved. Like, I think all of them know that they're too talented to be playing this badly. And the coach has to figure that out. You know, they shot 14% from 3. They were 3 of 21 from the 3. Let me try again. You know, they shot 14%, 3 of 21 from 3, 33% from the field. You know, they got to the free throw line, but again, it's just like, it doesn't really matter because they lost the game. They were pretty evenly matched on the boards. It's just nobody could score. And, you know, obviously that comes up to the Valkyries playing really great defense and forcing the best from their teams. But this is just not going to do. This doesn't work. And it's honestly very embarrassing, and I hope that they're able to figure this out soon. Shout out to the Valkyries for, you know, making it tough on them, but if they're not looking to make moves and make a trade, I definitely think the Spark, and honestly, they're not willing to fire their coach this upcoming off season. I'm very scared for them. But I appreciate you guys so much for sticking with me. I know this was a longer episode, but I had a great time. And I hope to see you guys next Friday. Yeah, but Fridays, these are happening now. I'll see you guys. Bye.